Welcome to
Crazy, right?
A podcast
Be your own person.
for those affected by
Crazy, right?
mental health,
I wanted to just try it.
Crazy,
It's something that I've struggled with for a while.
featuring live improvised music
Now I finally got my head around again.
by your host,
am I right? Crazy,
It feels good to talk about it.
right? Crazy, right?
Dave Asher.
My guest today is Charles Torpe. He is a member of the long-term recovery movement. He's been sober for 27 years and has worked in the field of human services for 25. Charles is a musician and a pioneer of recovery through the arts. Charles, thank you for joining me here today in my studio. I'm going to step over here to my piano. Do you feel, Charles, like in your life you, at any point or currently or generally, have a desire to stand out?
That's a really interesting question because my field is in human services, which I think a lot of the field is based on a sort of communal, egalitarian, be a member of the team type of perspective, and there's a part of me that really resonates with. And yet, I have to say, I think especially in my musical life, one of the things that I found is that when I'm performing or playing or on stage, there's a certain energy that comes forth that's not about necessarily standing back in the shadows. It's about wanting to be fully free and open and spontaneous and to be seen. And in a way that I always want to balance it with my other bandmates and not, stand forth arrogantly or take up too much space. And yet, I think that's a creative tension in my life. Is that on one side the desire to be part of and of a team and contribute and lead from behind. And there's another part of me that really just wants to shine and stand out and again, jump up and down and just be free. Joy being an invitation. When we shine, we unconsciously give permission for others to do so. If other people join in, then I think it can be a really amazing experience of expression and freedom, and that it also then gives anybody else in the room, I think, that permission to go there, which is like a heaven on earth.
Are you religious?
I wouldn't call myself religious, albeit I was raised in the Christian faith, more on the Protestant side of things. And there's a lot of that in my youth that was really important to me, of having a community and certain values and principles and creative expression also of praising and worshiping through music. I work for NAMI Metro Suburban, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Oak Park, Illinois. We have a drop-in center there, and of the 1,100 NAMI affiliates around the world, including Canada, Mexico, Italy, and Malaysia, we're one of maybe 5 bricks and mortar drop-in centers. So I'm very grateful and very blessed to be in this area and to work with such a fantastic organization.
You've been involved in nonprofits and serving the community for many years.
Yeah, I've been working in human services and not-for-profits for about 25 years, and it was actually about 3 years after I got sober from alcohol and drugs that I started making connections more in the professional community.
At what point in your life, what age did you make the decision and become sober?
I was actually 20 years old 3 months before my 21st birthday.
And tell me a little bit about some of the reasons or moments that led you to quit alcohol.
At the time, I was with a girlfriend. One time I was talking about having some challenges in my life, and she said, well, that makes sense, because it seems to me that you may be an alcoholic. And she said it in a way that seemed to me without judgment, without malice, without stigma. And so that set the stage for the beginnings of an opening. And then my stepmother developed cancer. And actually her and I, we had a very conflictual relationship. And it was through her illness that we started connecting. One of the most beautiful moments was that she had received from a friend a piece of the Berlin Wall after it had come down, that her friend was in Germany at the time and took a piece of the Berlin Wall with her. And after my stepmother and I started healing our relationship, she gave me that piece of the Berlin Wall. And it was at that moment that I recognized that throughout all the pain and misery and isolation and pushing people away with addiction, with my addiction, that I still had a heart that was underneath that. And I came to the conclusion over the next few months that there was no way I could continue living in that contradiction of feeling my heart, feeling my compassion, feeling my sensitivity that I always had as a kid, and that I think some of using alcohol and other drugs was around attempting to build a wall to protect my heart, to protect that sensitivity. And it was through my stepmother's illness that she helped me to see that I couldn't live in that separate place of separateness anymore.
I'm hearing a little hum now, and I'd like to work with that. And perhaps sing a song with you inspired by the idea of bringing down a wall and how that could connect to sobriety. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Stuck behind a wall, my friend.
I was there for many years, didn't know where to turn.
Are you looking to around.
I think if I turned around, I'd see a trail behind me of all the people both helped and hindered me. It's good to turn around now and then. It's good to turn around, see all my friends. It's good to turn around.
On that trail leading back to your past, do you regret anything? Any wounds you may have caused that you could confess? Could you confess?
I'm thinking about a time in my past. My girlfriend at the time was trying to help me get myself together, but I didn't think I could be ready to make that change alone. Oh yeah. So I hung up the phone, didn't look back. I tell her she can take her friendship and take it out there. Don't need it, no I don't need it.
Did you make peace with her?
You know, yes I did. We got along much better together in recovery. Recovery. I said recovery. I said recovery. Recovery.
How open are you with the members about your story?
I'm very open about it. I have a sense and a real affinity to people who see themselves as being outsiders. Being this sensitive, creative, intellectual person and experiencing it in a way as a gift and also a curse. To live life with a certain awareness and sensitivity to people's feelings and energies, and I think especially when people push people aside, you know, in subtle ways or in very direct, aggressive ways. I'm very attuned to that.
When you have that sensitivity,
At times when it feels like a burden, it's of just feeling things more strongly, more intensely, feeling dissonances between people more, and the pain that comes with that.
can you connect that trait with anything from your past and your family life?
Yeah, I remember before my parents were divorced, and just two different rooms almost, metaphorically and literally. We would sit, family would be together, and it would be my mom and dad and grandmother and sister and myself, and we would have dinner together. And then my dad would generally go silently and watch TV, And oftentimes my mom, sister, and I, and grandmother would go to another room that had a piano, and we would sing. And then when I would go over to the room with my dad, it was almost like he was so tired and burned out from the day, and he would just sort of slump on the couch and watch TV. And I remember one time I really wanted to connect with my dad, and between where he was sitting and the TV, I lined up all my toy cars and trucks. And I was attempting to engage my dad in play. And my experience was as if I was a ghost or he was a ghost. And we just didn't connect. And I have to say that what's resonating for me at the moment, metaphorically, is that was my wall. On the one side was, my desire to connect and to play like I was able to in the other room with my mom and sister and grandmother at the piano. And yet my dad was on the other side of this wall. And it's interesting because years later, I found out that my dad was a lot more playful and gregarious than I had known him to be in my youth. And some of the conclusion I've come to is that I believe my dad was a sensitive person, was a sensitive man. And for many years, what I got from him was a sort of, you need to toughen up, you need to man up. And yet, what I learned from him as I got to know him as a man later on was that he had a sensitive, playful, loving, connecting little boy in him too. And actually, when the two of us were able to connect in that space, it was so freeing. So after I got sober and I started taking a look at my past, and I started taking a look at wounds that I had experienced, and I remember sitting down with my dad one time, and he expressed a willingness to hear me share some of those wounds that happened between us. I just asked him if he was open to hearing some things in support of my recovery. And so I shared with him some of the hurts that I felt, including that time with the toy trucks and cars.
And you shared that. What was his reaction?
His reaction was actually that he said of the things that I expressed as wounds, he said that he didn't know that was my experience. And he said he surely never intended for me to feel those hurts or wounds. And then, this was the most healing thing for me, was that he started talking about his relationship with his dad and how some of the ways that he wanted to be seen and acknowledged and loved by his dad that he didn't get, and how he saw him in some ways taking a similar path as his father, who was very civically engaged and had his own business and was very community focused. And while my dad said he respected his father greatly and in some ways emulated him, he had a hurt and wounded little boy in him too that may have done a similar ritual at some point of attempting to get his dad's attention, to be seen and to experience his dad's love and his blessings and a sort of food, from his dad, a nourishment that he so wanted to get.
Do you have children?
I don't have children. My wife and I don't have children.
Do you feel like you would like to have children or would have liked to have had children?
I love the playfulness of kids. I absolutely love it. So from that place, yes, to experience that communion, that playfulness, again, that freedom of expression and connection, at times that zaniness, that wildness that kids can have. I love that. And yet two things I think that have, at least consciously, that I think are some of the reasons why I've chosen not to have children is, one, the responsibility of children I think is so great. And I wouldn't want a child of mine to feel my lack of presence. And yet, honestly, that's one thing I do connect with my father and my grandfather, to whom I never met on my dad's side, was I'm very mission driven and very community driven and very driven to create. And it's very important for me to have the space for that. And I wouldn't want a child to experience that loss. And I wouldn't want to experience also what I perceive would be a split within myself between what I feel is my soul and my life mission. That child might feel abandoned and sacrificed for the sake of that. And then lastly, I experienced a lot of pains and hurts in my family of origin, and part of me feels afraid about that idea of a path with having kids and having to face, I think, some of those profound questions and some aspects of my past.
I'm not sure myself if I ever will have kids, either the opportunity or, relating to you, the desired level of ability to take responsibility with your partner, with your wife. I'm wondering about if you are able, or if you struggle with being as emotionally attuned as you are with your work and with your mission.
After 13 years of marriage and 17 years of being together, I'm finding a reconvergence around a new project. And that project is around looking at things that are intercultural, where people cross borders to connect with one another through music and the arts and food and relationship. And we're interested in how other people are doing of these similar border crossings.
Thank you so much for speaking with me, Charles.
You're absolutely welcome, Dave. It was really a joy and a pleasure, and the opportunity to be in the moment of expression and exploration with you was really wonderful. So thank you.
thank you again to my guest, Charles Torpe. For more information about the Border Crossing Collective or recovery through the arts movement, you may reach him at charles.torpe@gmail.com. That's Torpe spelled Torpe. Charles, it's been a real pleasure. That wraps up this episode of Crazy Right with Dave Asher. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider writing a review or rating this podcast. And of course, we would love it if you subscribe. I'm Dave Asher, and I'm glad to be here.